common sense are in. Yes, there have been corrupt empires. Yes, they manipulate. Yes, there are secret societies. Yes, there have been oligarchies throughout history. And yes, today in 2002, there is a tyrannical organization calling itself the New World Order, pushing for worldwide government, a cashless society, open borders, total and complete tyranny, where human beings are absolutely worthless. There's 6.25+ billion of us, and the globalists have said it many times. There's too many of us. We're causing a problem. We need to be culled at the tune of 80%. It's amazing to talk about that, but it's the globalists, the UN, their own public statements, and they've convinced a lot of liberals and elitist conservatives and others that by going along with this, that we're intelligent members of society. It's the ultimate Malthus world view. It is this radical, virulent form of social Darwinism. It's the excuse of tyrants. And by creating open borders where there's no national sovereignty and only global bodies that control all the resources, by centralizing and socializing healthcare, the state becomes God, basically, when it comes to your health. And then by releasing diseases and viruses and plagues upon us, we then basically get shoved into their system.
Yeah, it ends there. Can you? The thing is this is from 2002. Let me just get to the. This is from 2002. It's Alex Jones. Talking, the thing is this, 2002, for those of you who are like 40, is not that long ago. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago that it should have been revolutionary, prescient, forecast of things to come. But it's kind of amazing. 2002, a year after 9/11, and what Alex Jones is describing 20 years ago, well, quite clearly it was in his radar 20 years ago, not on my radar. And the way he describes it, you can't be that right for the wrong reasons. Like you can be right for the wrong reasons, make a prediction Trump is going to win in 2016 and, take credit for being a revolutionary predictor, Nostradamus, whatever it is. You can't be that on point by accident. And it's quite astonishing. Where he's talking about once you're a not a ward of the state, but once the state owns you, once you're dependent on the state for healthcare, digital currency, the things that he saw in the works in real time 20 years ago when nobody else saw them. Well, you can write off a guy for being a lunatic because he was wrong on a few things, hyperbolic on a few other things. You don't get that much right so much ahead of the time by accident. And I had responded to that tweet, he's talking about what happens when the government owns you, once you have become part of the healthcare system. Canada, culling the population, 10,000 Canadians euthanized in 2021 alone under Justin Trudeau's Liberal government. Culling of the population. In Canada, since the beginning of COVID, there have been 40 some odd thousand deaths attributed to COVID. In 2021, there were, I think, I might be getting the numbers somewhat wrong, there were under 20,000 COVID-related deaths, even though in Canada, in 2021, the experts had come out and said, we should probably start distinguishing between dying from COVID versus dying of COVID. But setting that aside, I think it was like 16,000 COVID deaths, for which they shut down a country, compelled medical procedures for federal workers, failing which they lose their jobs, masked up children, shut down businesses, effectively destroyed the fabric of Canadian society and of the free world for 16,000 deaths, while simultaneously euthanizing over 10,000 Canadians, some of whom insisted on being euthanized because of the loneliness and despair they were enduring as a result of the COVID restrictions. And you listen to Alex Jones talk about it 20 years ago, cashless society. I don't know when Bitcoin got started, but this was before Bitcoin. You can't be that prescient and on point by accident. Now, people are saying YouTube is not showing. No, we're live on Rumble, people. I see it right here. Yay, a Rumble browser, thanks. Some people don't realize how much of a gift each day is. That is from Dog Digger on Rumble. We're live on Rumble. So people saying we're not live, maybe there's a bit of a delay, but we're live. I see myself right now, and I always make myself somewhat uncomfortable when I see myself. People, we're going to be going exclusive to Rumble, I'd say at about the 30-minute mark, give or take. I saw that video of Alex Jones today. I said, that's the intro. We don't need to see Barack Obama and puke in our mouths. We don't need to see Justin Trudeau and puke in our mouths. We don't need to see Joe Biden and say, sweet, merciful goodness, what the heck has happened to the administration of the most powerful nation on earth? Alex Jones. Before, his voice was different. He looked a little younger. 20 years ago, we all looked a little younger. Just foresight. It's post 9/11, and Jones was asking questions on 9/11 that some people were not asking about 9/11 at the time of 9/11. We are live on Bumble. So now, people, before we get started, because they're always one heck of a show. We've got some stuff lined up tonight. Sweet, merciful goodness. We're going to watch the now deleted NBC reporting on Jack Pelosi, on Paul Pelosi's attack. We're gonna watch that. We're gonna talk about that. We've got Pennsylvania imposing what can only be described as vague and nebulous, and therefore absolutely over the top and atrocious code of conduct on lawyers, which can have nothing other than the absolute effect, not of chilling free speech, of criminalizing certain types of practice of law. We'll get there. We're going to talk about Brazil because I keep forgetting Barnes and I talk about things on other people's channel, but we want to talk about them here as well. Got a jam-packed show. But, before we get there, people, you may have noticed that little thing. It said, this video contains paid promotion, because it does. And I'll tell you the anecdote tonight about the paid promotion. Pudge, the paralyzed puggle, has involuntary urinations and defecations. Can't control it. Pudge is paralyzed in the back because she got a pinched nerve in the back and lost movement of her back legs. Luckily, she retained some control of her bladder and bowel, because otherwise that would have been the end of it. Well, she had an accident in the kitchen today that I didn't smell. Why didn't I smell it? I don't know if it's entirely and only because of EnviroCleanse filter that we have in the kitchen. I think it is at least partly to do with this. EnviroCleanse air filtration system is the sponsor of today's stream. It's a product that I use in the house. It has a massive, beautiful HEPA filter, which filters out particulate matter from the air. It's got a patented purification filter in there that uses minerals to neutralize germs, neutralize odors. And I think that's why I didn't notice the massive puddle of urine of Pudge because of this filter. It's quiet. It's beautiful. It's used by the Department of Defense. No joke. You can look it up. It's on the website. I had to make sure I was able to disclose that fact. It's in 300,000 classrooms across America. And my goal is to get it into 10,000 classrooms in Canada so that Canadian kids can have proper air circulation without having to open up the windows in winter. They can have clean air in school. EnviroCleanse air purification system. Go to ekpure.com. Promo code Viva. You'll get 10% off the unit, and you will get a free air quality monitor. It's a third-party product, but it lets you know what your air quality is and if the product is working. And it is quiet. It's good. It neutralizes germs to like a quarter of the size of the Rona. They say, because I'm not a doctor, it will help you reduce your risks of catching the flu. It purifies the air, eliminates odors, eliminates particulate matter. It's fantastic. I have one. I use it. I love it. And I also love the fact that they support indirectly free speech, but they also support free-thinking radicals like Viva Fry, Robert Barnes, and all of us in the chat. So ekpure.com, Echo Kilo Pure.com, promo code Viva. Can you borrow $700 so you can get one? They have 0% financing. So there's also that option available. Unlike those. Let me tell you, they have 0% financing under certain terms, so you can check that out. But speaking of financing, so moving from one country to another. It's a sharp learning curve of a process. We drove down. I thought I was going to ship or drive my car back. I thought I was going to drive down, bring some stuff, bring the car back because it was a leased car. And I didn't necessarily want to have the car. Get down, decide we're going to purchase the Quebec car. It's a Subaru Ascent, made in wherever it's made, but it's a Quebec car. And I find out that, the insurance company here says you either got to get the car registered or bring it back and get, get a Florida car so that we can insure it properly. Okay. I go to look to see how one registers a Canadian car in America. And they say it's very simple. All you have to do is cross the border and declare the car. I was like, okay, well, that's good. But the border is 4 days away, or at least 2 days away if you drive. You got to cross the border, pay the duties, pay the duties, get the car inspected. That you got to pay a bunch of whatever, register. Then you got to go to a DMV in Florida, get the whatever. Long story short, not going to happen. So we're shipping the car back and we have to get a new car here. The leasing company wanted to charge 18% interest to lease a car. 18% interest. And I'm not a socialist, and there's no but to that. This is the type of, what's the word? Not free market. This is the type of corporate abuse that could turn a conservative into a socialist. 18% interest. Now, and by the way, now good interest, like reasonable interest on a leased car, 4 to 6%. That is already highway robbery. And you realize the system, I'm not going to go into a whole, the system's designed to keep poor people poor and make rich people richer. It certainly seems like that for certain things. Neil Oliver, it's a month old, the video, but talked about how, the banking system works. How you borrow money, creating money out of thin air and charging you interest on money that they've created out of thin air. And if you have no choice but to finance, you end up paying twice as much for the same products. You end up paying on a mortgage, because I had one back in Canada. You're paying more interest than capital. And then you want to talk about if you go to a car dealership, you say, well, we'll buy a used garbage car cash. Well, they're going to charge you more to buy cash because then they don't get to make the money off the interest that they would have made money off of had you leased or financed from them. The system, in some respects, is designed to keep people poor. It's designed to keep people dependent. And I can now understand why certain people have certain reflexes that are anti-capitalist to some extent. The goal is to get you walking or taking the bus while they fly on private jets. It's so obscene. It's so abusive that, if you're rich enough to have all the cash in the world and you don't have to pay interest, good. You can actually make interest on the money that you have. And if you don't, they reach up through your bottom hole and it's not getting blood from a turnip. It's getting cash from your body. It's nuts. And you're watching Alex Jones talk about what he's talking about 20 years ago. And we're saying, anyway, it all loops together. But thank you for reminding me. You can get 0% financing if you meet certain requirements on the filter. If you need to get a car, you're buying a piece of crap, which is going to cost you more money to maintain. Worse for the environment. Everything about the system is designed to screw and to be counterproductive. You end up having to get an old used car. Oh yeah, go get an electric car. That'll be the solution. Good luck financing it. Oh, you want to finance it? Well, you're gonna pay. The banks are gonna make their money. The car leasing companies are gonna make their money, and you're gonna be lucky to have it if you want it. Zero. So Little Rock says I have zero interest on my new Jeep Wrangler. Once upon a time, there was 0% interest, and it wasn't that long ago. On our Subaru, we were paying like 500 Canadian a month. I think it was a little bit less. Oh, it's the corruption of real capitalism. Well, you know what? Hold on. While we're on the subject, well, first things first. Standard disclaimers: no legal advice, no medical advice, no election fortification advice. Anyone who is so inclined to support the channel, They have these things called super chats on YouTube, Rumble Rants on Rumble. YouTube takes 30% of every dollar of super chat. If you don't want to support on YouTube, we are simultaneously streaming on Rumble, where we will be going exclusively in about 15 minutes. They have Rumble Rants. They take 20%. It's better for the creator, better for the platform to support a platform that actually supports free speech. Pamela R. Walker in a $1 Rumble Rant on Rumble says, so if we put it in the White House, will it rid us of that stink? Possibly. No comment. John McGarvey, $5 Rumble Rant says, if I had $1 million, I'd be rich. Bare Naked Ladies, classic Canadian music. But look, we've got some time. Speaking of classic Canadian music, I didn't want to make you all vomit in your mouths leading into the stream. But we've been around for 15 minutes. We've gotten to know each other a little better. It's time to make people vomit in their mouths just a little bit. It's not Trudeau. It's not Obama. It's not Biden. It's Chrystia Freeland. Listen to this. Chrystia Freeland, she's a woman of the people. She understands the plight of people who are struggling daily in Canada. Before COVID, by the way, 1 in 5 children in Canada was hungry, was not getting enough food to eat. Chrystia Freeland she's a person of the people. Hold on, I just saw this here. Sorry. She's a person of the people, a woman of the people. She understands the plight, the struggle of existence in Canada. Let me just get the barf off. She understands the plight of Canadians. Listen to this. She's talking about what she's doing to survive these hard times.
And I think Canadian families are looking really closely at all of their expenses. I personally, as a mother and wife, look carefully at my credit card bill once a month. And last Sunday, I said to the kids, you're older now, you don't want to watch Disney anymore. Let's cut that Disney Plus subscription. So we cut it. It's only $13.99 a month that we're saving, but every little bit helps. And I think every mother in Canada is doing that right now.
First of all, not to pick on bad habits, because I have a few, but I'm going to pick this, the sucking in the air. First of all, I think it's an indication of insincerity. I think that is, compared to her standard baseline, that's an indication of something. But
I think Canadian families are looking really closely at all of their expenses. I personally, as a mother and wife, look carefully at my credit card.
I personally, as a mother and a wife, let me just look at my notes. Oh yeah, that's about as sincere as saccharine. It's about as authentic as saccharine.
Bill once a month. And last Sunday, I said to the kids, you're older now, you don't want to watch Disney anymore. Let's cut that Disney Plus subscription.
Let's cut it. You're old enough. You don't use it. Let's cut something that you don't use to save $13.99 a month. And that's what we're doing to make ends meet in these hard times, during which we've taken 3 pay raises during the COVID. She's worth quite a lot of money. Comes from, no problem. But she understands. She cut $13.99 out of her monthly expenses, while they demand of Canadians, by the way, to subsidize the CBC to the order of $1 billion to a year. We pay more. We're compelled to pay more to subsidize state propagandists than she willingly paid for a service that she no longer uses. But she understands the hardships of Canadians. She just cut $13 out of her as a wife and a mother. I don't understand what those two identity things have to do with anything. You will own nothing and like it. That's what they want. Nothing about this is capitalism. This is all a result of the last 2 to 3 years, bad policy, harming citizens in every respect. Oh, and by the way, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. You will cut your Disney and you will be happy. You will cut all expenses and you will be happy. You will eat bugs and you will be happy. Coming from Chrystia Freeland, member of the Board of Trustees of the World Economic Forum, WEF. You all know that. We all know that. All right. I see Barnes in the backdrop. Let me get one more super chat in. Evander Farson says, you can self-finance all your major purchases by building capital in a private asset out of the banking system and deprive the banks of the ability to inflate. Please search infinite banking concept. No financial advice either. All right, I see Barnes, he's in the back. I'm going to star some super chats. so we can get to those afterwards. Let's get this show started because I was saving the NBC deletion for Robert. Robert, we're going to get into that in a second. How goes the battle, sir?
Good.
We haven't done it in a while, and I've forgotten to ask. What's the book behind you, and what's the cigar that I don't yet see in your hands?
Oh, it's the book is T. Harry Williams, great biography of Huey Long, pretty big book, a famous American populist from the 1930s, and a Tatuaje cigar is what I have tonight.
All right, and everyone, tell me if the audio is too loud. It sounded loud on my end, but if the audio is good, no, don't touch it, Robert. I think it might just be my computer volume. Okay, Robert, we've got a lot on the menu tonight. Go for it.
Speech code for lawyers, Emergencies Act Canada, the inquiry going on there. The Truth to Vote, the folks behind 2,000 Mules, still sitting in a federal jail as of Monday and still there as of this evening. The New York court that took over the Trump organization won't allow Trump to do anything with his properties, won't even allow him to submit a financial statement without the judge's personal approval. We have Trump suing the New York Attorney General in the state of Florida in state court over those matters. We have election law updates on absentee ballots, ballot poll watching, the various reforms that have happened in some of the states, and your right to campaign and not be fired from that in the state of New York in a case that went to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. We have White Boy Rick sues the feds. We have a big musical producer who got blacklisted for simply talking about what lyrics he used to cover in his songs. We have it turns out the city, according to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, governments can ban you from feeding yourself or feeding homeless people even at a religious place. We have fake cops getting immunity because apparently, according also to the 8th Circuit, they had no idea that nobody knew that you had to be a cop in order to act like one. We have vaccine updates on workers' comp suits, on Tyson Foods, on Children's Health Defense against the FDA. We have all the issues at SCOTUS, which include Trump's taxes, affirmative action, the administrative state, the what's called FBAR accounts involving the IRS and the Department of Treasury, and Navajo, the rights of Navajo tribes and treaties and how that works. We have the 4th Circuit making good decision limiting Section 230. We have how does journalists, a lot of people don't know about these journalist shield laws, but how do they work when it's the journalist who gets killed, like what happened in Las Vegas?
Yeah, that story is going to, there's an amazing question of law that comes out of that.
We have a big Second Amendment win in New York, the right to carry guns to church. We have the right, LA politicians, how they bonded in a federal criminal case that's pending in LA. It turns out they really bonded well over free trips to Vegas, and prostitutes. We have another hush-hush being confirmed. So go ahead.
I say, who doesn't bond over hookers, Robert? It's hookers and gambling.
Hookers and gambling in Vegas goes together, right? We have a hush-hush that was confirmed. A couple of the people falsely accused of assassinating Malcolm X were not only freed, but received a substantial settlement for their wrongful imprisonment. And we have the NBA suspending Kyrie Irving for his speech off the court while covering up corruptly covering up sexual harassment by its own players inside the court. And then we got the discovery issues concerning the big tech collusion case involving multiple states, multiple courts, multiple jurisdictions.
Well, we'll see how many of those we get to. But Robert, this was not on the menu, but I think we have to talk about it. Trump called him Ron DeSanctimonious. Robert,
people can ignore all that.
Okay, I mean, the first thing
it'll go nowhere. It develops nothing. There is no actual acrimony, not on the DeSantis side. I can tell you that. And nor is there's people who want there to be acrimony between the two. And Trump made his little statement. Just threw that out there as just to let everybody know he's the head guy. That other than that, you can totally ignore it. There'll be much ado of it. Nothing will come of it.
Well, you remember when he responded to the media about having, the accusation about having said inject disinfectant, and he said I was being sarcastic. So I was positing the idea that it might have been even possible that he meant it as a compliment in a loving way and not necessarily as a jab.
He meant it to people that are trying to promote divide between the two of them, just to remind them that he's the boss. That's classic Trump. I mean, Trump's made these statements about Steve Bannon. He's made these statements about a wide range of his own allies. So that's not a major surprise. I don't think anything will come of it beyond beyond that.
I was surprised to see not just left-wing blue check marks on Twitter freaking out, but like right-wing people. You should have done this. Shame on Trump. Yada yada. And to me, it seems like not just an unnecessary distraction, but almost playing into the mainstream media game of sowing discord among allies.
That's what they want. They want Trump supporters to dislike DeSantis and DeSantis supporters to dislike Trump. And some of them took the bait and ran with it, and that's because they're fools. So this is not anything to pay great attention to. There is no great divide between the two of them.
All right,
DeSantis has made that crystal clear, and you notice that DeSantis didn't care, and he just made clear that these rumors being leaked and circulated that he himself is engaged in any of this talk is nonsense, as he's told everybody who will listen for the last 2 years. So that there's no risk there. He's going to coast to victory on election day. DeSantis is, and their relationship will be just fine. You never know for sure with Trump because his favorite source is still the New York Times. So he tends to panic to certain things that I don't think he should panic to. But it's what happens when you actually care about what the New York Times thinks, as Trump obsesses over. That's a little bit of Trump being Trump, but he tends to want to do this to show everybody else is beneath him. He's the head guy. Whenever he hears any talk of anybody else being on his equal, he will make comments like this. He has done it for his entire political career.
And another one that is not on the menu, but I know people are asking about. We've talked about it. We talked about it Friday on Hunley's channel with Grobert on Freeform Friday. Brazil, the Brazilian elections, Bolsonaro, and I always forget the name of the person who won. It starts with an L.
Lula. Yeah, Lula. Let's call him Lula.
Okay, so people in the chat, people who watch us, Robert, they want to know stolen election, legit.
I have no idea.
Are they both?
I mean, at this point, Bolsonaro has not contested it. That's what I can tell you. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't accepted it either, but he hasn't contested it either. So there are protests. We'll see if somebody comes forward with some claim. I think given where the Brazilian court is aligned, it's very unlikely they're going to set aside the election. And Bolsonaro may make the same decision and decide, put it this way, it's a weird stolen election when Bolsonaro's people win really well at a whole bunch of lower levels. So if it was stolen in one particular area where Bolsonaro didn't do well. And maybe that's the case. We'll see. I mean, the internal disputes involving Brazil, there is no big people want to keep Lula a communist or whatever. It's like he governed for 8 years, folks. He didn't increase the state share of the economy. So, you call him whatever you want, label him whatever you want. He's labeled himself many different times. He governed like a pretty moderate leftist, which is there's a long history of in Latin America. He's likely to do the same. His foreign policy isn't all that different, frankly, than Bolsonaro's. Their big difference is on crime issues domestically. Bolsonaro was cracking down on drugs and gangs. Lula is seen as as much less likely to do so, and thus the folks connected to drugs and gangs and prisoners were cheering Lula's victory on election night. So that's where the great concern is domestically within Brazil. Is whether or not drug dealers and gangs stole the election in areas where they had disparate influence. But it won't matter unless the Brazilian courts or some other Brazilian governmental body goes along with it. There are dangerous calls by allies of Bolsonaro to have the military take over. Brazil was governed by a military dictatorship very recently, between 1964 and 1985, a very brutal. And there's people that are associated with Bolsonaro that are affiliated with those groups. So there was talk about the CIA trying to get Bolsonaro to make sure he didn't contest it. That doesn't surprise me. I'm sure the Biden administration interfered on behalf of Lula. But it would be a worse mistake, in my view, for Bolsonaro to go along with another military coup in Brazil. I think that's what the people who demonized him and didn't like him accused him of doing, and he would be stepping into that. So but we'll see what anything happens. I haven't seen substantiated evidence as yet as to what the basis is to claim the election was not correctly counted the ballots. There are people that are confused about in Brazil, you can vote no, you can negate your ballot. You can go in just to basically say, screw you. I think both candidates suck. And about 5 million Brazilians did that. That's consistent with the public opinion polling. People are confusing that with 5 million ballots getting illicitly destroyed. That's not what that means. And you'll probably see a lot of the same thing you saw here in the States in 2020. There will be a lot of red herrings, a lot of misdirection. A lot of people will champion bad theories, bad premises, bad facts, bad argument, and not look at the good ones. So I think Bolsonaro will play this by the book. If he thinks he's got a credible claim that might have some success, he'll make it. If he doesn't think there is, I think he'll step down, won't have the military take over. His allies did very well in a lot of governorships in a lot of regions, and he's in a very good position to come back next time around. Whereas Lula's sandbagged, limited and handcuffed by limited support domestically, institutionally, and there's a lot of issues Brazil's facing that are not easy to fix. So I think that's what the likely outcome is going to be.
All right, now I didn't realize we're already a half an hour in so early. Britt Cormier, Rumble Rant says, I do not know which tatouage you have in your hands, Barnes, but I approve. Have met Pete a few times, always good time, even got to tour of the Miami operations with him.
It's spelled tatouage, it's pronounced tatuaje.
Okay. And then there's a $2 Rumble Rant that says, Lulu in Brazil will get blamed for the upcoming recession, depression. Bolsonaro can run again next time.
That's exactly right. And a lot of people around Bolsonaro know that. Bolsonaro wanted to win, but Bolsonaro was fine with not necessarily winning either because there was a lot of difficulties ahead that were not clear how they're going to be managed. Lula, benefited from a booming Brazilian economy when he was president. It was his successor that ran into trouble on crime and other issues. Lula's definitely corrupt, in my opinion. I have personal professional experience on that side of the aisle. But his corruption is, honestly par for the course for Brazil. But I don't think he's in a good position to recreate what he created before. And he wants Brazil to have its own UN Security Council position. People keep getting confused. The World Economic Forum puts a bunch of people, takes credit for everybody. People got to quit looking at the site and say, oh, this must mean this person's secretly behind the World Economic Forum. I've already seen this about Tulsi Gabbard, totally false. Peter Thiel, totally false. And now seeing it about Lula, totally false. You can be very critical of Lula, and many Brazilians have very legitimate criticisms of him, corruption and drugs and crime being a critical area of focal point for them. But without buying into nonsense that he's secretly part of the World Economic Forum, that he wants Brazil to have its own UN position. He's a big believer in BRICS. He champions BRICS. He's been critical of Zelensky, called him a joke. So the idea that he's much different than Bolsonaro on this is mostly mythical. He's not that distinguishable, but very old. His wife of a long time passed away a few years ago. He served about a year or so in Brazilian prison before those corruption charges were invalidated by the Brazilian Supreme Court. He's not in a great position to manage the country, unfortunately, for the people of Brazil.
It's an interesting thing about the WEF, because I've been wondering this as well. Like they slap up sometimes
they
pictures.
Call everybody a young leader. They call people they invited to something a young leader. What does that mean? It means absolutely nothing. Nothing, Euro Wars. You're completely wrong. You're dead wrong. You're badly wrong. You're embarrassingly wrong. Don't spread fake news, because you undermine criticizing the World Economic Forum when you pretend people who are its critics are its secret supporters. I mean, frankly, James Corbett has done this at times about Putin. Putin's a secret supporter, WF. No, he's not, you nitwit. Why do you think they're waging war on him? That makes you seem like a less credible source when you can't filter out that basic level of information and intel. And I think James Corbett's one of the best analysts out there. But it's just people got to quit looking to the WEF and this is like the commies used to do this. They take credit for anybody who was popular. Of course, that doesn't mean everybody they took credit for was actually a commie.
Well, I'll say with one exception, when members of your government are actually on are actually on the board of trustees of the WEF, that's more of
they're on the board of trustees. if they align with it, if they publicly state statements in support of it, that's what you look at. You look at their actual agenda in their actual public statements and their conduct, not the WEF's taking credit for people. It's the individual leaders' conduct, and that will answer your question much quicker than anything else will. Well, people keep looking, and they're taking the bait on things badly, and they're believing people who are harsh critics are superly secret, all part of the tentacular thing. That makes everybody look like an idiot when they criticize the World Economic Forum that deserves to be criticized.
What was I just about to say? It was the WEF. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll forget. But now, Robert. Everyone should go over to Rumble because we're going to end it here. and talk about Paul Pelosi, because that's I need to talk about that. We talked about it Friday, and we're going to play a certain video that NBC decided to delete, not because we can't play it on YouTube. I'm going to put it here tomorrow when I put the highlights out and the full stream. But we're going to do it over there now to reward the free speech platform. So head over to Rumble while I end it on YouTube. And then I'm going to show you something. It's beautiful. Ending on YouTube.
And we will, for people that ask that for whatever reason can't access Rumble, like some folks in France because of that, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
The whole video will be posted at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
Yeah, I sometimes forget to put the whole stream there. It will be on YouTube tomorrow. It will be on Rumble, Locals, Viva Barnes Law. Ending on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble in 3, 2, 1.